Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our review for Rental Family. Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin. And if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering the world of movies, TV shows, toys, collectibles, gaming, and all things geek-centric. And welcome to our review for Rental Family as part of our TIFF coverage. A big arigato to Toronto International Film Festival this year for accrediting SS Press, so we could bring you this review early before its theatrical release on November 21st. Joining me for today's review are my rental family, Mr. Nate Shelton and Darcy Hudson. How are you?
What would you rent us for?
What would I'd rent you to annoy me, and then I would then rent Darcy to probably smoke my worries away, if you will.
There you go. So when you're feeling too comfortable or not comfortable enough,
exactly,
we're here for you.
I'm not at either end of the spectrum, you know.
Ohio gozaimasu. That's what we'll say. Absolutely.
It feels like Japan has been sort of following us ever since we went back in April.
Yeah, man.
And TIFF was no different. Mm-hmm. We definitely saw our fair share of Japanese stories that took place in Japan or either revolved around Japan. I know
like four different movies over and over again. We're like, what is going on? Does TIFF know?
TIFF knows. TIFF knows that we just want to go back. But yeah, this is one that I think we were all pretty aware of. Actually, I think Darcy, you were the one that was like, "Oh, dude, we got to go see this one." And I was like, saw the preview. I was like, "Sold. It's on the list." Yeah. Like we were all.
Yeah, it was one of the few things going into TIFF that I'm like, this is one we have to see because the premise of it sounds so delightful and mm-hmm. It was a treat to go to.
Well, shout out to you, Darcy, for having that sixth sense of just, seeing a trailer and being like, bro, this is going to make us cry and feel all the feels. Because it definitely did. Before we start talking about it, I'm going to set the stage
Before we start crying.
Yeah, before we start crying all over again and talking about Japan, I want to set the stage here with a synopsis for the film. Struggling to find purpose, an American actor lands an unusual gig with a Japanese agency to play stand-in roles for strangers. As he immerses himself in the client's worlds, he begins to form genuine bonds that blur the lines between performances and reality. Confronting the moral complexities of his work, he soon rediscovers purpose, belonging, and the quiet beauty of human connection. This is directed by Hikari, starring Brendan Fraser, Takiro Hira, Mary Yamamoto, Shannon Mahina Gorman, and Akira Imoto. As mentioned, this film is in theaters November 21st. We were lucky enough to see it at the Toronto International Film Festival. I don't know if this is a selected theater situation. So it's like a limited release before it goes to like more larger release, but check the internet. The internet will be able to tell you if it's playing near you. But what I have here, what has been recorded here is November 21st in the US and in North America. So let's get into it. Let's start by talking about the place that this film takes place in, and that is Japan.
Do we have a whole hour to go through just that? Because
I think I would not want us to take an hour because it's not about recalling all of the places that you had been in there, that are featured there. I think the thing that I want to talk about though is just, having gone there and now seeing it hits different. And I just wanted to see if like that's how you guys felt. So, Darcy, like, how did you feel about seeing Japan as sort of the backdrop of this story?
Well, again, after wanting to go to Japan so long, from seeing it and all the things media I consume and watch, for getting to be on the other side of it now, having gone there, it hits a lot harder now. Like I know how how good of a job this movie does at capturing what it's like to live in Japan, or to live in Tokyo specifically, one of the busiest cities on the planet. And it is a vibe entirely. And this movie nails it and makes you want to go back for all those warm and delightful reasons. So yeah, they Japan's a special place, man.
And I
Mhm.
think they captured it. They do showcase the hits. They showcase the city. They showcase the countryside. But I also love and respect the way that they also showcase some of the negative sides of the country. They do showcase. They do focus on things like isolation that can occur even in a country where there are so many people grouped together. And I think that earns a lot of respect, because I think a lot of movies that we see that take place in different countries that do kind of highlight the beautiful parts of those countries sometimes can start to feel like just a tourism ad. And this did, don't get me wrong, this will make you, if you've never been to Japan, want to go, and did make all of us want to go back so desperately. But at the same time, I do respect it for showcasing all parts of the country and the culture.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. It's such a densely populated city that, you know, isolation is something that feels kind of ironic to feel when the city is so populated, but it is actually a reality of being in such a busy city. But you know, touching on what you said there, Nate, like that's what I loved is that, you know, this doesn't necessarily romanticize Japan the way that a lot of Western productions do. There are some of those postcard shots or those stock image time lapse shots of like iconic places like Shibuya Crossing and other areas of Tokyo. But mostly they go for the non-polished moments. You know, the cinematography has this very gentle observational quality to it
Hmm.
that almost like the camera's just simply existing alongside these characters rather than just being set in these places. And you know, the way the natural light and the tight streets, the quiet apartments, the public spaces, the places that you know, we see beautiful trees and foliage, you know, the way that people just are, you know, are captured in these spaces with brushing up against one another. You know, the frames often hold longer than expected, giving you just time to sit in the beauty of the space, but also in the emotional distance between some of these characters and some of these moments to understand how, again, as we were saying, like such a busy city can also feel so incredibly isolating. And you know, I think shout out to the production designing. You know, just everything felt lived in. It felt real. Nothing is exaggerated. Nothing is manufactured for effect in any way. And I think, yeah, it's Japan just feels like it's a mirror. You know, becomes a mirror for this for the film's themes in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think the same can be said about the way the film's lit. And you mentioned some of the sequences in terms of where it's taking place and feeling romanticized or not romanticized. Like Takuro Ishizaka is the cinematographer for this movie, and I love the way that they were able to, like, you know, when I wasn't popping off for hearing the street crossing sounds that we would hear all over in Japan, or the konbini sounds that we would hear. The lighting is what really grabbed me as well in a lot of these sequences. There's sort of this warm glow of yellow light when the emotions are warm and fuzzy, and then there's sort of this white light or colder light that's used. There's a very specific scene with Mari Yamamoto's character Aiko at a diner. And it's interesting because if you watch the scene back, it starts off warm and fuzzy, like a conversation between two coworkers that are somewhat getting along. And as Aiko starts to show how she really feels about Philip, it starts to get a little bit colder as the camera sort of focuses in on her. And so I really love how the way that it's captured and the way that it's lit all really match the overall emotions and sort of themes of the movie, which again is that sort of duality of what the rental family is, which we can
Hmm.
obviously talk about a little bit later. But yeah, no, I really, really dug that about the look of the movie.
For sure. Yeah. You know, the idea that the mirroring of the themes, you know, just it feels like a paradox of just, again, just being surrounded by millions of people yet just feeling so alone. And I think that that's what this really does in the sense of the landscape, the way the landscape is shot, the way the cityscape is shot. You know, the film, it leans into the sort of the more soft, melancholic sort of tones. It's especially with that warmness that you're talking about, Nate, and how it mirrors those emotions with the warm and the cold. And yeah, I think it's handled so well, and it feels like as we've been kind of saying, it doesn't feel like it's really going for like the tourist trap shots. It's going for the vibe, like you described, Darcy, like
Mhm.
the vibe of being there, and what that culture looks like, and what that city looks like through the lens. So I think it really did nail a more personal, intimate approach to making Japan look and feel very unique. Did you guys have anything else in regards to sort of outside of just like the look of it, how, from the music, anything else that really stood out to you about just the vibe of this film?
Yeah, well, you mentioned music. Alex Summers and Yonsei, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, the lead singer of Sigur Rós, which when you listen back to the score, and not a lot of it's available online, so I had to go based off memory from the book, but also from when I say the book, my TIFF 50 journal that I kept, but also just
I was like,
from
you could listen to music from a
from a
book.
book.
Wow.
But just from some of the notes that I had, and also there are a few. There's a little bit of their music available from the movie online that you can find, but I'm waiting for the soundtrack. Yeah, but it's jazzy, it's sweeping, at times it's bouncy, and again, it does do that thing like we're talking about, where it follows the emotions through the performances, through the story, and it is very Sigur Rós in the sense that at times it kind of feels maybe a little bit bigger, a little more produced than maybe what we've been talking about with the look and feel of the movie. But I was so okay with it. And to learn in interviews that apparently they had recorded and produced all of it without actually even ever seeing any of the movie was really impressive.
Sometimes that happens.
And it
Yeah.
was cool. And it's just
Hmm.
it's really cool how they were able, whoever I guess in the edit and working with them as composers decided, what they made goes where. Kudos to them, because it really does help to carry the performances.
Yeah, I think what stood out to me about the score, and again, it's hard to remember based on just where it's just more specific moments, but the way it can add that fun levity to moments with that bounciness that you were talking about, but then it also really kind of like dip down, and really you get to feel some of the emotional moments with the music. It was well paired in the sort of, I guess, the emotional flow of the movie, and that's what you would really want in a case like you're describing. If they hadn't seen any of the movie and they were scoring it, I think very much they got the cadence, they got the idea of what the vibe and the mood was meant to be, and it's perfectly captured in the music. And yeah, it was well done. It was a great sort of marriage between picture and sound that was quite amazing.
Mhm.
Um, Now, we have some pretty outstanding performances from this, but I feel like we need to start with the whale in the room. I mean, Brandon Fraser. Um,
What do they call him, like Mr. Shine or something, the toothpaste mascot?
yeah, his alter ego.
So good.
I have like a small thing to say, but I'm gonna throw it to you, Darcy. I know you had a lot of thoughts to say about him, or you had some thoughts to share in regards to his performance and just what he was bringing to this. So I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, at this when I saw that he was going to be doing this one, I felt like I was very excited for him because it was going to be something he'd be very bring himself to this role. This actor who's down on his luck, and he's had such an interesting career going through Hollywood on his own that taking this actor and placing him in a foreign place, I feel like it is right up his alley to just open himself up and be himself while acting his heart out, and it shows in this movie. There are so many moments where he is just says so much while doing so little because of the
Hmm.
presence he has in this movie and the connections that he forms with the cast of characters. Like it's crazy how this movie is about human connection and him being the anchor point for this story. The connections he makes are so palpable throughout the movie, and they're so enjoyable when you see all the ways they feed into each other and the payoff by the end of the film. It was incredible. I was a standout performance, if you ask me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. Like I think if you like like Jason Sudeikis in Ted Lasso, or sticking with the Brett Goldstein, Jason Segel in Shrinking, you're gonna love Brendan Fraser as Philip in this movie. I think he's similar to those characters, but he's quieter. He's a little more gentle. He's very kind-hearted. Brendan Fraser has those beautiful big eyes. He's just big, massive eyes that you get lost in.
Yeah, it's very
And
Smeagol eyes. Kind of remind me of Smeagol.
but like a nice Smeagol, not the scary.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no. Like very emotive eyes, like Smeagol.
Sure. Yes.
You know? Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Not bulging out of his head. Right?
No, definitely not. And just like Smeagol, I think his performance. No, what I think.
Precious.
I think, like you said, Darcy. I think this role is perfect for him, and I think him as a vessel for the audience makes this movie work so well, because I did really enjoy his performance. I enjoyed his performance a lot when he was on his own. I enjoyed it even more bouncing off of all the incredible members of this cast. And so, yeah, I think I've always been a big fan of his. I know that some people have different opinions of his in terms of, especially from The Whale, the last performance that he had, or other more dramatic roles that he's taken on. But I've always just been a big fan of him. I actually liked him in The Whale. I don't know what to say, but I adored him in this movie. I think this is probably this and George of the Jungle are probably my two of his favorite performances for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, it's the ripped abs. I know you just couldn't peel yourself away from it, right?
Resist.
Yeah,
those big eyes, the Smeagol
George
eyes
of
with the ripped
Jungle.
abs.
Yeah,
Come
exactly. Strong as he could be. Oh, no, yeah. I again, Brendan Fraser. I was a fan of The Whale as well. I think he gave a very sincere performance in that. And again, here he's delivering something that's truly beautiful. It's not showy. It's not loud. It's a quiet, vulnerable performance, and I think it's built on sincerity and emotional honesty. In all honesty, like it feels like it's coming from a very real place, and you can see it in the quiet moments. In the way he fills silence with his eyes or his smile, or just this sort of genuine concern sometimes that he might have for some of his clients, if you will. In a way, he's constantly trying to keep himself together while also longing for, I think, what he's working towards, or what he's working to do, is just human connection, to connect with people. Again, it feels like a continuation of what we all love about Brendan Fraser. The open-hearted warmth, that the sense that he the sense that he brings a piece of himself to the roles that he plays. And I think this is an excellent example of that, where it very much blurs the lines between who he is and who his character is, in a really, really great way. Now there's a stacked cast of Japanese actors that did some outstanding work in this film. I'm going to throw it to you guys. I know that you guys probably have a couple on your list. Who do you want to shout out?
I mean, to me, I think one of my favorite connections formed over the film is the one that he forms with the retired actor that Akira Emoto plays. What was his name again?
Keikuo.
Keikuo. Yes, he was just so full of life, despite being at the end of his. It was the passion he brought to the way he just interacted with Philip. It was so good. Philip is acting as a writer, or someone who's writing a book about him. Basically, that is the role he's filling in this relationship.
Someone that cares about him.
Someone that cares about him, and just the way that gets Kiko to open up, and the friendship that is formed through these hardships, and this like almost abrasive at first. The warmth that comes from it is so rewarding. And again, Akira Emoto does an incredible job of just bringing such strength to such a small part of this movie. It was so good.
Yeah, he lives in that space. I think the performance is in that space between fun mischief balanced with like experience, but also grumpiness, and like some of the grumpiness and sort of that comes from having lived those experiences. And I think it's going to be difficult for a lot of people not to think about their grandparents watching this performance, or even their parents, or just somebody in their life of that age that they've maybe interacted with. And I think he his performance stuck with me most in the movie. I agree with you, Darcy. I also want to shout out Shannon Mahina Gorman as Mia, who is the adopted, or I guess not adopted, but she's the daughter of the whole rental situation. And um, I thought she did a really good job in this movie. I thought she acted so naturally. I think there's a lot of times with with kid actors where they tend to, you see their reactions to dialogue before the dialogue is even said. And I think Shannon does a really good job in this movie of taking a beat and pausing, and very similar to Brendan Fraser, which is crazy that this is like one of her first movies, and it's like she can act alongside Brendan Fraser. But what you were saying about like having those silent performances, she does that. And you see that in
Oh
her
yeah.
face when some of those really lovely moments are happening, and when some of those heartbreaking moments are happening, you see it in her face and the way that it changes and the way that she is disappointed, which is not an easy thing to act. And so that's huge kudos to her for that, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, she was definitely one of the standouts. I think the standout for me outside of the two that you mentioned is also Mary Yamamoto, who, if I'm not mistaken, is Aiko, who's part of the rental family agency, if you will. And she has an interesting backstory, but I think it's the way she opens up to Philip as he becomes the new member of the crew, if you will,
Hmm.
and how she kind of learns to be more empathetic and understand the situation from his perspective. It's almost as though Philip gets too close in many of these cases, and Aiko is kind of, you know, trying to understand why he can't keep a sense of professional distance between the clients and himself, and understanding what his task is. But she also then starts to sort of fall into the same sort of I guess care, and having that empathy. So I really did love how she kind of started as a bit harder on the outside, but she definitely softened. And I think that had a lot to do with just, seeing how Philip was with his clients, and kind of learning what it was. And there was so much more to be explored with her story. Hikari showed up at the screening and talked about how there was more story for these other characters, for Aiko, and for Takiro Hira's. I guess he's the leader of, or he's running the rental
He's the owner.
family. Yeah, he's the owner of this
Shinji.
this Shinji. There was more to their story to be explored, but it she didn't want to. Hikari didn't want to necessarily get bogged down with having to, like, forcefully, implement this story to kind of give justification to what's going on in their world, versus giving just little moments. And both of these characters get their moments where you kind of understand maybe something from their past without having to see all the messiness of their past. And I thought that was really, really smart, but it also just highlights how they are also going through stuff just as much as Philip is. So, again, I think there's just an attention to the idea of, like, this entire ensemble. I think the actors are just kind of, they're all bringing a nuance and a subtle complexity to their characters, and it's showing what, I guess, what emotional labor kind of looks like, and especially when it becomes your job, and like how the line between um like connection and performance can blur. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what's
Hmm.
really interesting. And I think they're all kind of discovering that through bringing Philip in. And I think their chemistry with Brendan Fraser is really natural. It's gentle. You understand it, and I think it's exactly what the story needs for it to kind of feel like we can all connect with it. So yeah, I thought that, like, the cast entirely just brings it all together.
Hmm. Again, I think again the whole, like, the way that the story revolves around human connection is really strengthened by the fact that the connection between all these characters in the cast is so believable and so real, just from the short time you spend with them in various moments and stuff. It was great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, on that, let's talk about the story, because I think that this is where we've been kind of hinting at it, and kind of bringing it all together. But like, you know, Darcy, like you just beautifully said, like it's about human connection, and how it all just kind of comes together, and how the cast really brings that to life. um how else do you feel, like, for the both of you, do you feel like you kind of like, what are you taking away from this story?
I mean, I think what the story does really well is it shows an outsider, coming into Japan's culture and customs, and not understanding how or why they go about doing that. And throughout the course of this movie, not only do you understand why Japan, their culture is the way it is about topics like mental health and stuff like that, but also how they are open to the American coming in and bringing his values and kind of allowing them to kind of change their thought and outlook on certain things. So
Hmm.
it's really cool how this story again uses the connection through the various rental situations that we see Philip go through, and then his relationship with the coworkers
Hmm.
are just constantly show how people take away little parts of interactions and carry them forward to try and make themselves better. And this movie does a beautiful job of showing, again, being open to change or other people's thoughts can lead to a better version of you, which is so cool.
And I love that, Darcy, because I think, we brought up Takahiro Hiro's character Shinji as the leader of this rental family group, and granted, he is more open because it's a business opportunity, and obviously there's more of a sort of a negative outcome. But then we've got Aiko, who, she expresses her distaste for Philip as this gaijin coming in. And when we were there, we I would say probably 99% of the people we interacted with were absolutely just some of the most genuine, lovely people that I've ever interacted with in terms of strangers in a big city or a new country. Um, but but it's not like we didn't see some signs that said like Japan only or Japanese only, because of the way that tourism has impacted the country and just different elements and social media and all this stuff. So seeing sort of the way that both Shinji and Aiko sort of cross over in terms of their relationship with Philip, was awesome. And Hikari, at the Q&A for this movie at the TIFF premiere, mentioned that the rental family service had been around. They saw that it had been around since the 80s, but when she looked deeper into it, it actually has been around since the 1600s, since the Edo period, with kabuki theaters where they would hire fake audiences to yell at actors. And so that was something that her and her writing partner found really, really intriguing and wanted to explore it further. And I think when we talk about the story of this movie and the sort of the main focus of the rental family concept, it is something that is it's so intriguing for people outside of Japan, because I think there's so many similarities to services in the Western world where immediately our heads go to the negatives of those services. Immediately our heads go to the dangers of services like that, of the terrible things that happen of similar services that are available in the West. But I think the way that this movie showcases how this can help people, how this service, even though it has positives and negatives, it can help people escape terrible relationships, or it can help them find new versions of themselves, or it can help them move forward to find actual natural relationships after testing themselves through this rental family. And it's such an interesting concept and dynamic that I just found this movie so compelling. And I think it does such a great job of leading us through all of the various iterations, positive or negative, with Philip. And again, Brendan Fraser is so delightful in this movie. You're gonna cry. Like if you cry at stories with little kids or old people, you're gonna bawl your eyeballs out.
It's a
Or even just
twofer, this
people.
one.
Absolutely. Even just like, if if you cry about stories about people who want the freedom to love who they want to love, there are elements of that in this movie that really stood out and were impactful for me in this film. So I think this is going to be a hit for you if any of what I just described sounds even remotely interesting. I think this movie does such a good job on a story perspective in terms of explaining that.
Hmm. Going off what both of you said, I couldn't agree more. I think, for me at least, at its heart, Rental Family is really a story about loneliness, in through the lens of Japanese culture. It's not the dramatic kind, though. It's the everyday loneliness, the people, learn to hide in a way. And I think the film is using the concept of rented relationships to explore the lengths we would go to just be seen, or to 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 be heard, even if it is temporarily. The themes that I feel like, there's just so many themes of like the cost of isolation, the need to belong, the emotional masks we wear, and how connection and real connection can be messy, imperfect, but just overall it's healing, right? I think, while the story never really just reaches the melodramatic nature of what of its themes, it's really going for the small moments, and that just quietly add up to being so much more. And I think a gesture, a gaze, a shared silence, a moment of laughter over food, uh, I think through Philip, or Brendan Fraser's character, the film reminds us that sometimes the therapy we need isn't a breakthrough, or some grand revelation. It's simply another human being sitting across from us, and willing to understand us. And I think, to the point of what you're saying, Nate, a lot of people would think of that here on the west side, on the Western world, like as being like sex service jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that this handles the idea of being a service for mental health, and kind of exploring that to the varying degrees based on the clients that we have. We have a, a friend a client who's just living at home and needs a best friend. Philip is that best friend. It's this idea that sometimes people just need that connection, and it's not about having to just go to therapy or take drugs to do it. It's literally figuring out your stuff with another person. So I think that, to me, that's such a beautiful message to send, of that, sometimes the best therapy we need is just connecting with one another. So yeah, this is some really, really great stuff. Well, look, we've talked to death about all of this. I got to know, what is your score, and any final thoughts, which we'll be giving a score out of 1 to 5 rented family members. Darcy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I love this movie. Brendan Fraser's incredible. The cast he works with, they all bring so much to this film, and just the way they portray Japan, like you said, and it's at its best and at its worst, it's such a delight from start to finish. Easy 5 out of 5 rented families or family members, whatever we said. Easy
Sure.
5 out of 5 for me.
Well,
Yeah.
you only have another 20 minutes left before you have to pay for another hour. So
Jeez. Inflation, bro.
it's tariffs. We got to import, Darcy. It's very expensive. Yeah, I think we talked about it quite a bit, but I think the recency bias of having traveled to Japan for the first time this year, into the way that this movie highlights the beauty of the people there, the culture, the city, the landscapes. But then, I think it's such an interesting concept, like I said, and I love how the story just felt really natural, and what you actually brought up, Justin, of like the way it's captured, in the way that it's sort of, the camera is sort of there in a lot of situations. It's not as sort of highly produced, and it never ends up coming out like an ad for tourism. But the idea that the movie goes deeper, and we get multiple storylines, and the relationships that we get to see showcase that we can just be better by helping people, by being there for people. And I really love that. I love that this is a story about, it like the whole cast is super honest. The story is about human performances, and we get human performances. And the score is just, I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to listen to it when it eventually is released on streaming services. Yeah, I recommend this to everyone who just wants a lovely found family story. It's very digestible, very gentle, good natured, and even though it's a bit heavy at times, and I do think there's a little bit to be said about the pacing feeling a little episodic to a certain degree, jumping between the different storylines. The feelings I had were so warm in every single one, and I was so drawn in by these performances. it didn't matter for me. I highly recommend it. It's hard to believe that this is Hikari's second directorial feature film. But yeah, I'm giving Rental Family 4.5 out of 5 rented family members.
Damn, 4.5. That's pretty low.
Super low. I cut a family member in half.
Right. Poor guy.
I got a discount though, so
that was to accommodate the tariffs, of course.
Yes. Of course.
Yeah, overall, I think Rental Family is, as you were saying, it's a tender, honest portrait of what it means to feel alone, and how we reach for connections in whatever ways we can. Brendan Fraser and the entire cast bring the heart, and I truly believe Japan is so much more than just a backdrop. It's a character. It's an atmosphere. This is a beautiful portrait to Japan, and the people, and the way it's shot is just so intimate, and it just feels so honest. In the way it's captured the natural beauty of Japan, and not, as we've been talking about before, there's just that the sort of the romanticized side of it all. And I think this all just comes together, and it creates a film that in my mind, it really lingered in a lot of ways. It was one that gently asks you to consider the people around you, and maybe even yourself, with just a little more empathy, right? And as far as as far as a TIFF film goes, and as part of the festival, it's one of the standouts for me. It just, when you think about the festivals and the film festivals, it's the films, it's, they have weight. Or, as you mentioned, Nate, like, this film has weight. It and resonates with you more on an emotional level. And I think that this film is just such a beautiful reminder that the real therapy we need is connection, and that we can all have. And yeah, I'm really in the idea of coupling that with seeing it at TIFF, with a connection of an audience of people that we don't even know. It was really great. So yeah, this is a 5 out of 5 rented family members for me. So I think I said my own score wrong as well, Darcy. So it's okay.
It's all right. We're about to call it in for the night. Head back to our individual homes, no longer rented with each other.
Sure.
I'll miss you guys, though. I'll rent you again. I'll give you a good review.
Nate's got a lap to go home to, so it's okay.
You guys are being paid to hang out with me?
Oh, no. Oh, no, not at all. No.
Is this even real? Do you actually post this, or are you just lying to me?
There's actually no podcast at all. It's all just your parents have hired us. Yeah.
Make him feel like he's important.
Yeah.
Oh, no. There is actually a podcast. Don't listen to them. There is actually a podcast. And you know what? We're wrapping today's review. So thank you for joining us for our review for Rental Family. A huge thanks again to TIFF for accrediting us as press, so we could review this movie ahead of time before its theatrical release this Friday, November 21st, in theaters, selected theaters, I think. Just check online. You'll know where it's playing and when you can see it. But if you want to let us know what you think of the movie when you see it, or whatever we're doing here at Geekcentric, well, you can reach out to us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or you can hit us up on Twitter at GeekcentricYT, or on Instagram and TikTok at wearegeekcentric. Keeping it TIFF focus, we do have coverage from the festival. We have a variety of different reviews out now, like our review for Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, Frankenstein, The Smashing Machine, and most recently, our review for Sentimental Value, which was a lovely conversation with Eric Marchin from the Untitled Movie Podcast. That's out now on podcast feeds. We also have our recap episode of TIFF. This was our first year of going to the festival and doing the thing. So we spent some time talking about the array of things that we went through that experience, and why it was probably one of the single best experiences of 2025 for us. So go listen to that as well. We are nearing the end of 2025, believe it or not. But we still have stuff. We still got stuff to do. We got stuff to do. We got stuff to cover. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/geekcentric, for our most recent interviews, like my interview with the director of Netflix's latest animated film, In Your Dreams, Alex Wu, who joins the podcast. We also have on there our interview with the director of Predator Badlands, Dan Trachtenberg, also on the YouTube channel. So go check those out. Links in the show notes. Nate, Darcy, arigato for joining me on this podcast. I don't know that much Japanese. You guys spent 3 weeks there and learned the whole thing, so it's
Learn the
fine.
whole thing.
Learned the whole thing. You already stopped your Duolingo account, I heard. So
I'm still going until at least
so
2
am
years.
I. Yeah.
Until at least 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good for you. Keep that subscription going. So that's good. Okay, well, thank you for joining us for this episode, and until next time, as we say,
Daisuki.
Johnny.
Hewa.